The snow was relentless, blanketing the vast wilderness in a cold, unyielding silence. For days, the winds howled like ghosts, and the trees stood frozen, their branches heavy with ice. Amidst this unforgiving winter, a boy wandered alone, lost, frightened, and fading with every breath. His small footprints vanished quickly beneath the fresh snow, swallowed by the endless white that threatened to claim him forever. Just when hope seemed as distant as the sun behind storm clouds, a lone figure appeared, cutting through the blizzard like a beacon of warmth. The man who found him was no stranger to hardship. Weathered by years of riding the rugged frontier, his hands rough and steady, his eyes sharp but kind, he didn't hesitate. With strength born from survival, he wrapped the boy in a worn coat and lifted him from the merciless cold. What began as a simple act of mercy, rescuing a lost child, would become a turning point, not only for the boy but for the entire town that would come to know him as their greatest protector. Nobody knew the boy's story at first, where he came from, how he'd lost his way, only that he was found alive against all odds, carried to safety by a man whose own past was etched with sacrifice and silence. In the weeks that followed, the town watched as the boy healed, slowly growing stronger, his spirit unbroken despite the winter's harsh grip. But what no one could foresee was the destiny that awaited him. A destiny intertwined with the fate of the very people who had once feared the wilderness more than the unknown within their own hearts. This is not just a story of survival. It is a story of redemption, of how one life saved can ripple through time, shaping the future in ways no one could imagine. It's about courage passed from one generation to the next, about a boy who became more than a survivor. He became a savior. And as you listen, you'll discover that sometimes the coldest winters bring the warmest legacies. So, before you turn away, ask yourself, what would you do if you were the one to find a lost boy in the snow? Would you ride into the storm? Would you believe in a future born from such a fragile moment? This story will take you there, to a time when every breath was a battle, and every act of kindness could change a life forever. The man who found the boy was named Jesse Thompson, a rugged rancher with a reputation carved out of silence and hard work. His hands told stories of long days in the sun and cold nights by the fire, but his eyes held a softness reserved for those who have seen too much loss. When he spotted the boy's faint outline against the swirling snow, Jesse didn't hesitate. Wrapping the child in his own heavy coat, he carried him through the biting wind toward the warmth of his cabin, where a fire burned low but steady. Inside, Jesse tended to the boy's frostbitten fingers and pale cheeks. The boy, barely conscious, clung to life as if every breath was a victory. Jesse worked quietly, wrapping him in blankets and feeding him sips of water warmed over the embers. For days, he never left the boy's side, his heart heavy with the weight of responsibility. The town whispered rumors. Some believed the boy was a lost settler's son, others thought he was a runaway. But no one dared ask Jesse what had brought the child so close to death. As the boy's strength slowly returned, so did his spirit. He was quiet at first, eyes wide with fear and confusion. Jesse gave him a name, Samuel, and with it, a promise to keep him safe. Samuel learned the rhythms of the ranch, the sound of horses' hooves, the smell of pine and earth. He began to grow stronger, but the shadow of that frozen night lingered in his every step. Yet beneath the fear, there was a spark, a flicker of something fierce and unyielding. The town was divided in its opinion of Jesse's choice to care for the boy. Some admired his kindness, calling it a testament to the humanity that still survived in the West. Others whispered that raising a stranger was a fool's gamble, that the wilderness should have taken Samuel as it had taken so many others. Jesse paid no mind. To him, the boy was more than a chance at redemption. He was a second chance at life, for both of them. Winter gave way to spring, and Samuel's world slowly expanded beyond the walls of Jesse's cabin. He explored the fields, chased rabbits through the tall grass, and learned to ride the roughest horses on the ranch. The boy who had almost perished in the snow was now growing into a young man, carrying the silent lessons of survival and courage etched into his very being. But no one could have predicted what Samuel's destiny held, a destiny that would one day turn the boy saved into the savior of the entire town. As Samuel grew, so did his bond with Jesse. The rancher became not only a guardian but a teacher, passing down the skills needed to navigate a land as unforgiving as it was beautiful. From dawn until dusk, Samuel learned how to track game, mend fences, and shoot with steady aim. But Jesse also taught him something less tangible: how to listen to the land, to respect its rhythms, and to find strength not just in muscle, but in heart. The town watched as Samuel transformed from a fragile child to a figure of quiet confidence. He moved through the streets with a calm that belied his years, helping neighbors with tasks, offering a kind word or a steady hand. Though he spoke little of his past, those who looked closely could see the weight he carried, a memory of frozen nights and near death that shaped every decision he made. Yet, instead of letting that weight break him, Samuel used it as a shield for those who couldn't protect themselves. Trouble, however, was never far in the West. As settlers pushed deeper into the wilderness, disputes over land, water, and survival grew fierce. One bitter winter, a ruthless gang of outlaws descended on the town, threatening the fragile peace that had been hard-won. They burned barns, stole cattle, and left fear in their wake. The townspeople, worn by years of hardship, looked for a leader, someone strong enough to stand against the darkness. Many whispered the name of the boy once lost in the snow. Samuel stepped forward, not with boastful words or a band of gunslingers, but with steady resolve. He organized the townsfolk, teaching them to defend their homes and each other. Under his quiet command, men and women stood guard, setting traps and sharing watch duties. Samuel's knowledge of the land gave them an advantage, knowing where to hide, when to strike, and how to protect what was theirs. The boy who had been saved became their shield. When the outlaws returned, they found not a broken town, but a community united and prepared. The fight was fierce, but the people stood firm. Samuel led from the front, his courage inspiring even the most weary. After days of struggle, the outlaws were driven out, their reign of terror ended by the very boy they thought powerless. From that day on, Samuel was no longer just the child rescued from the snow. He was the savior of the town, a living testament to the power of second chances and the enduring strength of the human spirit. Word of Samuel's bravery spread quickly through the neighboring towns, carried by travelers and traders who marveled at the tale of the boy who rose from near death to become a leader. His story became a beacon of hope for many, a reminder that even the most fragile among us can grow to shape the destiny of an entire community. But for Samuel, the real victory was not the praise or the stories told around campfires. It was the quiet knowledge that he had protected the place he now called home. Despite his newfound role, Samuel remained humble, always crediting Jesse for saving his life and teaching him the true meaning of strength. The old rancher watched with quiet pride as the boy he saved grew into a man whose courage was matched only by his compassion. Together, they worked side by side to rebuild the town, healing the wounds left by the outlaws' destruction and forging bonds that would withstand any storm. Life in the West was never easy, and new challenges awaited on the horizon. Harsh winters, scarce resources, and conflicts over land persisted, threatening to undo all they had fought for. Yet with Samuel at their side, the townspeople faced each trial with unwavering resolve. His presence reminded them that survival was not just about enduring the elements, but standing united in the face of adversity. One evening, as the sun dipped below the jagged mountains, Samuel stood on a ridge overlooking the town. The wind carried the scent of pine and smoke, and the faint sound of children's laughter drifted on the air. He thought back to that frozen night when Jesse had found him lost and alone. If he had not been saved then, none of this, the town, the people, the life he loved, would exist. The past was a shadow, but the future glowed with promise. As darkness settled, Samuel's gaze hardened with determination. He knew that the true test was yet to come, not just for himself, but for the town that had embraced him as their own. The story of the boy lost in the snow was far from over. It was only the beginning of a legacy that would echo through the ages, a legacy of courage, hope, and the unbreakable bond between a man and the land that saved him. Samuel's leadership was not born from a desire for power, but from a deep sense of responsibility. He understood that the strength of a community came from its ability to protect the weak and nurture the vulnerable. He spent long hours listening to the townsfolk's fears and hopes, mediating disputes, and ensuring that justice was fair and swift. His quiet wisdom earned him respect, not just as a warrior but as a guardian of peace. Under Samuel's guidance, the town flourished. New families arrived, drawn by the safety and stability that had once seemed impossible in such a harsh land. Schools were built, roads cleared, and trade routes established. The wilderness that had once threatened to swallow them whole began to feel like home, a place where dreams could take root and grow strong. But Samuel never forgot the fragility of that peace. He kept watch on the horizons, knowing that danger often came in unexpected forms. Bandits, harsh weather, and even the greed of distant landowners tested the town's resolve. Each challenge was met with the same steady hand and clear mind that had saved his life so many years before. At night, when the stars blanketed the sky and the world grew quiet, Samuel would sit by the fire and think of Jesse, the man who had given him a second chance. He owed his life to that simple act of kindness, and he carried the memory like a torch, lighting the way for others lost in their own storms. The boy lost in the snow had become a man who would never let anyone else face the cold alone. The story of Samuel and Jesse is more than a tale of survival. It is a testament to the power of compassion and the enduring spirit of the West. It reminds us that sometimes, all it takes is one act of mercy to change the course of a life, and that one life, in turn, can change the fate of many. As the years unfolded, Samuel's influence stretched beyond the borders of his town. His reputation as a protector and peacemaker drew the attention of neighboring settlements struggling with their own battles. Invitations arrived, some official, others whispered through campfires, asking him to lend his wisdom, to stand where others had fallen silent. But Samuel, ever humble, knew that leadership was not about glory. It was about the quiet strength to hold a community together through the darkest storms. Back home, Jesse watched the boy he saved transform into a man who carried the weight of many on his shoulders. The old rancher, once weathered and alone, found solace in the legacy growing from his act of mercy. Together, they rebuilt more than fences and barns. They rebuilt trust, faith, and a future shaped by kindness as much as grit. Jesse often said, "The cold didn't just steal a boy's breath that day. It gave him the fire to save us all." But the West was never truly tamed. Shadows lingered in the canyons, and threats came riding like dust storms on the horizon. Samuel faced each with unyielding resolve, his courage tempered by the memory of the snowstorm that nearly claimed him. It was this blend of vulnerability and strength that made him not just a leader, but a legend, someone who knew what it meant to be lost, and, more importantly, what it meant to be found. One bitter winter, when the snow came heavier than ever before, a desperate cry echoed through the valley. A young girl trapped in a ravine, her life hanging by a thread. Without hesitation, Samuel rode into the storm, guided by the same instincts that had once saved him. Hours later, he returned, the girl safe beneath his coat, his heart beating with the unshakable certainty that saving one life can ignite hope for many. And so, the boy lost in the snow, once fragile, once forgotten, became the town's greatest savior. His journey is a living testament to the power of compassion, resilience, and the quiet acts that shape our history. This is not just a tale of the Old West, but a story that lives within all of us, reminding us that even in the coldest nights, the light of one brave soul can guide an entire town to safety. Samuel's story was never meant to be told in haste. Like the slow carving of canyons by the river, his legacy was shaped over time, by patience, perseverance, and the small, steadfast choices made every day. The town grew under his watchful eye, and with it, a new spirit emerged, one not forged by fear or violence, but by the enduring belief that every life mattered. Children born into this new era heard the tale of the boy saved from the snow, not as a distant legend, but as a lesson woven into their everyday lives. They learned that courage wasn't always loud or flashy, but often quiet and persistent. That helping others could change destinies, and that even when the world seemed cold and unyielding, kindness could warm the hardest hearts. Yet, beneath the growth and the peace, Samuel remained vigilant. He knew the West had a way of testing even the strongest bonds. When conflict arose over land and water, he sought solutions that brought people together rather than tearing them apart. His leadership was marked by listening, understanding, and the unshakable conviction that unity was the town's greatest weapon. In moments of quiet reflection, Samuel often found himself standing at the edge of the frozen river where Jesse had once found him. He would look out across the icy expanse, feeling the cold wind on his face, remembering the night that changed everything. It was a reminder that no matter how far he had come, he was still part of that vast, untamed wilderness, a wilderness that demanded strength, but also grace. The story of Samuel and Jesse is one of redemption and renewal, a testament to the transformative power of compassion in a world often ruled by harshness. It shows us that heroes can come from the most unlikely places, and that sometimes the greatest salvation lies in the simple act of saving a lost boy in the snow. The seasons changed with relentless certainty, each one layering its own trials upon the town and its people. Yet through scorching summers and bone-chilling winters, Samuel remained a constant, not merely as a protector wielding rifle and grit, but as a symbol of unwavering hope in a place where hope had once seemed impossible. His hands, roughened by years of hard labor and battle, carried more than just tools. They carried the memories of a life saved against the odds, a debt repaid not with gold or glory, but with dedication to the land and its people. It was in these quiet, tireless acts, repairing fences, tending to the sick, teaching the next generation to ride and fight, not just with weapons, but with honor, that Samuel forged the true strength of the community. The boy who had been lost in the merciless snow had grown into a man who embodied the spirit of the West, showing that survival was not only about endurance, but about rising to protect others when the cold tried to steal everything. The town itself began to reflect this transformation. Where once suspicion and fear had divided neighbors, a new sense of kinship and resilience took root, binding everyone together like the hardy pines lining the ridge. Families rebuilt homes from the ashes of past raids, and children grew up with stories not only of hardship, but of the man who carried them through the darkest winters. Samuel's name became a quiet prayer, whispered among women drawing water at the well and men gathering wood for the fires. He was no longer just a boy saved from the snow. He was the guardian who stood as a shield between his people and the harshness of the wilderness, a living testament to the idea that even the smallest flicker of kindness can ignite an enduring flame of courage and community. Yet Samuel's journey was never without sacrifice. In the stillness of many nights, when the wind moaned through the valley and the stars hid behind heavy clouds, he wrestled with the ghosts of his past, the cold that had almost claimed him, the fragility of life hanging by a thread. He understood that leadership came at a price, and though he bore the respect of many, he also carried the loneliness of those who must stand firm when others falter. It was this quiet burden that made him human, reminding all who knew him that strength was not the absence of fear, but the will to face it time and time again. Every scar, every sleepless night was etched into his soul, shaping the man who had once been a lost boy, but was now the steadfast heart of the town. As new threats emerged, whether from harsh elements, bandit raids, or disputes over scarce resources, Samuel's resolve never wavered. He met each challenge with a calm decisiveness that inspired his people, but also with a wisdom born from experience. He knew the West was wild and unforgiving, and that peace was fragile. But he also believed that the bonds forged in shared struggle could withstand even the fiercest storms. He taught the townsfolk that courage was collective, that their strength came not from guns alone, but from their unity and shared hope. Through this, the town learned not only to survive but to thrive, anchored by the example of the boy once lost and now their savior. In quiet moments, often standing alone on a ridge overlooking the town, Samuel reflected on the journey that had brought him here, from the brink of death in a snowstorm to the heart of a community that had come to depend on him. He thought of Jesse, the man who had saved him without hesitation, whose simple act of compassion had set in motion a chain of events that none could have foreseen. It was a reminder that one person's kindness, no matter how small, can ripple outward in ways that shape entire lives and histories. Samuel's story was no longer just his own. It was woven into the very fabric of the West, a legacy of hope born from hardship, and proof that even the coldest nights can give rise to the brightest dawns. The town's growth was steady, but it bore the marks of every hardship faced and every victory won. Wooden cabins gave way to sturdier homes, and dirt paths became well-traveled roads. Samuel played a pivotal role in this transformation, not as a distant leader, but as a hands-on participant in every endeavor. He was the first to rise at dawn, breaking frozen ground with a pickaxe, and the last to rest, checking fences under a blanket of stars. His commitment was contagious, igniting a spirit of perseverance that swept through the community like wildfire. But beyond the tangible work, it was the invisible strength Samuel inspired that truly changed lives, a resilience that fortified hearts and minds against the relentless challenges of frontier life. Children who once trembled at the thought of winter storms now grew strong under Samuel's quiet mentorship. He taught them not only how to ride and shoot, but how to read the signs of the land, to respect its power, and to understand that true bravery often meant compassion and patience as much as it did strength. Stories of the boy lost in the snow became lessons told around campfires, tales not only of survival, but of redemption and the enduring human spirit. These stories shaped the town's identity, reminding all that their roots were in more than dirt and timber. They were in hope and unwavering courage. Though peace had settled, Samuel knew it was fragile. The West had a way of testing even the strongest resolve, sending trials in unexpected forms. Conflicts with neighboring settlements, harsh seasons that threatened crops and livestock, and the ever-present threat of bandits required constant vigilance. Samuel met these challenges not with brute force alone, but with the wisdom of experience and an open heart. He sought alliances where possible, negotiated peace where necessary, and stood ready to defend his people with unwavering resolve. His leadership was a balancing act, a testament to the complex dance of survival and humanity on the frontier. In quieter moments, Samuel often walked the ridge lines alone, reflecting on how far he had come from that fateful night in the snow. He remembered Jesse's steady hands, the warmth of the fire that had saved him, and the weight of the second chance he had been given. These reflections fueled his purpose, reminding him that no matter how cold the world might become, a single act of kindness could kindle a flame bright enough to change the course of many lives. It was a lesson he carried not just for himself, but for the generations that would follow. As the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky blazed with colors only the West could paint, Samuel stood tall, a man shaped by hardship, defined by courage, and remembered by all as the boy who was lost in the snow but rose to become the town's greatest savior. His story was far more than legend. It was a living testament to the enduring power of hope, the strength of compassion, and the profound truth that even in the wildest places, one life saved can illuminate the path for countless others. Years folded upon themselves like the layers of weathered leather on a worn saddle, and with each passing season, the town blossomed in ways that no one had dared to imagine during those darkest days. The small settlement that had once huddled under the threat of endless winter now thrived beneath clear skies and warming sun. Fields of wheat and corn stretched toward the horizon. Barns were rebuilt sturdily, and laughter, once scarce, echoed through the streets like a new kind of music. But amidst this growth and renewal, the heart of the town remained anchored in the legacy of one man. Samuel, the boy once lost to the snow, now the steadfast guardian and soul of the community. Despite the prosperity, Samuel remained grounded, carrying within him the quiet humility that had defined his journey. He knew all too well the fragility of peace and the weight of responsibility it demanded. Yet, rather than burden himself with the role of a ruler, he chose to be a servant leader, always listening, always present. His door was never closed to those in need, and his hand was always steady to help those who faltered. His example taught the townsfolk that true leadership was not the loudest voice or the fiercest gun, but the courage to stand unwavering when others might turn away. But as with every frontier tale, shadows lingered just beyond the edges of the light. Harsh winters, disputes over land, and the occasional band of desperados reminded the town that survival was a constant battle. Samuel faced each challenge with the same determination that had driven him from the brink of death, his mind sharpened by years of hard lessons and his spirit unbroken by loss. His presence was a shield that not only guarded his neighbors, but also inspired a fierce loyalty and unity that no threat could easily dismantle. In every trial, the town saw reflected the strength of the boy who had once been saved and the man he had become. In the solitude of twilight, Samuel often found himself at the edge of the ridge where the snow had nearly claimed his life so many years before. He would gaze out over the land, the valley below alive with light and movement, and feel a profound connection to the earth that had tested him so mercilessly. That cold night had shaped him, yes, but it had not defined him. Instead, it had ignited a fire within, a fire that fueled his commitment to protect, nurture, and lead. And as the stars blinked awake in the deepening sky, Samuel knew that his journey, though marked by hardship, was a testament to the unyielding power of hope. The story of the boy lost in the snow and the man who saved him is not merely a tale of survival. It is a vivid illustration of how compassion can transform lives and communities. It reminds us that even in the harshest environments, Whether physical or emotional, the human spirit is capable of rising, healing, and leading others toward a brighter tomorrow. Samuel's legacy endures as a beacon, lighting the way for all who find themselves lost in life's storms, proving that one act of kindness can change not only a life, but the destiny of an entire town. As the years wove themselves into decades, the legacy of Samuel became woven into the very fabric of the town's identity. His story was told and retold, not as a distant myth, but as a living history that shaped the values and spirit of the community. New generations grew up knowing the boy who had been saved from the snow, who had risen to become a protector and savior, a man who taught that courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. His example instilled in the townsfolk a belief that no one is beyond saving, and that every life carries the potential to ignite change. The town's landscape bore witness to this transformation as well. The once barren ridge where Samuel was found became a place of remembrance, marked by a sturdy wooden cross and a small garden of wildflowers that bloomed each spring like a promise renewed. On quiet evenings, elders would gather children to share the story of the snowstorm, the rescue, and the journey that followed, lessons in resilience, compassion, and the profound impact of a single act of kindness. These stories became the heart of the town's heritage, inspiring hope and strength in the face of any adversity. Samuel himself lived quietly in the later years, his days spent mentoring the youth and helping to settle disputes with a wisdom born from experience. Though the scars of his past remained, both visible and hidden, he carried them with grace, teaching that wounds need not define a person, but can become a source of empathy and strength. His bond with Jesse Thompson, the man who had saved him, endured until Jesse's peaceful passing, a testament to the enduring power of gratitude and friendship forged in the harshest of trials. One cold evening, as Samuel stood watching the sun dip beneath the horizon, he felt the weight of a life fully lived. The snow had long since melted from the valley, replaced by the warmth of community and the promise of tomorrow. Yet the memory of that fateful night never left him. It remained a guiding light, a reminder that even in the deepest darkness, salvation is possible. With a quiet smile, Samuel turned from the ridge and walked back toward the town he had saved, knowing that his story would live on in the hearts of those who followed. This tale of survival, courage, and redemption is more than just a chapter in the history of the Old West. It is a timeless reminder that hope can be found in the bleakest moments, and that one person's compassion can change the fate of many. The boy lost in the snow became the town's savior, and through his journey, we learn that our greatest strength lies not in how we face the storm alone, but in how we carry each other through it. The story of Samuel and Jesse is a powerful testament to the extraordinary impact of simple acts of kindness and unwavering courage. It reminds us that even in the harshest of landscapes, when all seems lost beneath the snow and silence, hope can be found in the hands of one who chooses to save, to protect, and to believe. Samuel's journey from a lost boy on the verge of death to the savior of his town teaches us that our past does not define our future. It is the choices we make when faced with darkness that truly shape our destiny. Through the trials and triumphs of these two men, we learn that true strength is not measured by might alone, but by the compassion that fuels it. Jesse's act of saving a child in the storm became the spark that ignited a legacy of protection, leadership, and community. And Samuel's growth into a man who leads with heart shows us that being a hero is not about fame or fortune, but about the courage to stand when others falter and to lift those who cannot stand on their own. As this story lingers in your mind, consider the doors you have the power to open, the lives you might change with a single act of bravery or kindness. The West was wild and unforgiving, but it was also a place where people found strength in each other, where one life saved became a beacon for many. Samuel's legacy is a call to all of us to be that light in the cold, to ride through our storms with unwavering resolve, and to never underestimate the power of compassion in shaping the world around us. Remember, the greatest victories often come not from grand gestures, but from the quiet decisions made when no one is watching. What if the world needed your courage today? What story will your life tell when the snow settles and the wind grows silent? This is more than a tale from the past. It is a challenge and an invitation to carry forward the spirit of hope, resilience, and love that Samuel and Jesse lived every day. If this story moved you, take a moment to share your thoughts in the comments below. Your voice could inspire someone else to find their strength. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories that touch the heart and stir the soul. And if you believe in the power of courage and kindness to change lives, give this video a like, helping these timeless lessons reach more people who need to hear them today.